tell me a little bit about what oh dear. I'm warming you up.
Right, you are.
Can you tell me a little bit about, what inspired you to become a realtor?
Yeah, I mean, 2020 hit. I think most of us can really say that was a shifting year for a lot of us, not only in our personal life. For myself specifically, I was still with corporate. I was in the corporate world. I had recently gotten injured and had taken some time off. Right when things started to close and to shut down, I felt like the world shut down with me. I was upset that I was forced to slow down because of my injury, but I was able to take the time off and really just heal. And when I say heal, a lot of my pain was coming internally. And when that happened, I addressed a lot of things that were happening within. And I just started my healing process. I was able to slow down and take some time off. I was forced to take the time off, but in that time, I was really able to assess kind of where the direction of my life was heading. And I think 2020 really gave me a chance to be able to look at what made me happy, what didn't, what brought me fulfillment. And I took the 6 months off, and that was what was given to me. And as I was thinking about coming back to work, I would get like the thought of going back to work, and I know many of us have been there, right? The thought of going back to work made me cringe. And I felt very ungrateful because in the midst of so much pain, hurt, so much, not knowing, a lot of people were losing hope. A lot of people were losing their jobs. I was hoping that I was able to I was praying, I'm like, God, let them just lay me off. And I felt really ungrateful because I was blessed enough to be able to work from home and plug in, not go anywhere, had a secure, good income. But the thought of going back didn't make me happy. And so I like to think I've done an amazing job raising my daughter, and I've instilled a lot of great things, a lot of principles, a lot of values. And more importantly, I've talked to her about doing things that have purpose and have fulfillment. And in that moment, and as I was talking to her, telling her how unhappy I was about returning back to work, she said to me, Mom, and Ed Milet, for those of us that know him, he actually asks this question on a lot of the podcasts. And she said to me, Mom, what do you think, what do you think God would say to you if you were to die today and you'd make it to heaven? And God would say to you, you could have had this life, but instead you chose to stay here. And that was like my biggest awakening in reality, and just to really look at things for what they were in the face of them. And of course, I stayed in my job because of security, right? Because that's all I knew. And so that was the beginning of the end. I feel like that was actually the beginning of the beginning, right? I immediately told her, okay, well, shoot, I don't know what we're gonna do, but let's figure it out. Give me ideas. I've always had a dream to have my own restaurant. We grew up with my mom, was an amazing cook, and she actually had a restaurant of her own. And I've always envisioned it. I know exactly what I want. I know what the atmosphere is going to look like. I know it from the beginning to end. But of course, 2020 hit, and what was the majority of all restaurants were all closed. And so that brought anxiety, financial pressure, and all that stuff that I didn't need to feel in that moment. And so I said to myself, what am I going to do? During that time, we had started Relatable with two of my really best friends. And for those of you guys that know Relatable, you guys knew that during that time, we were able to bring, one of the episodes was bringing local realtors that were that were doing great things, that were great leaders in the community. And little did I know that that was really going to be, that was part of the path to be able to lead me to where I'm at today, right? One of the guest speakers on there was Taiwan, which many of you guys know her. She's a huge inspo. She's been an amazing mentor of mine from the other side and just in person. And she actually was able to speak through this and sent us a video and really just talked about her story. And I showed it to my daughter, right? One of those evenings we were in bed, and as a mom, I wanted for her to be able to listen to someone else's story, to pick something up from it. And little did I know that she was going to be able to give me the gift of where I'm at today. And so she watched the video. It was about 14 minutes long, and she was probably about 13 years old at that point. As a 13-year-old, I'm like, oh my gosh, can you please just watch the entire video without asking when it's going to be over, right? But Ty's story was such an inspiration, and it was just a story that just had your attention. You wanted to hear more. You wanted to hear how it ended. And in that, and I'll share it with you guys so you guys can actually hear the story on your own. But at the end of the story of the video clip, my daughter looked at me and said, "Why don't you become a real estate agent?" And so in that, oh my gosh, Brian, I'm gonna cry.
Take a moment.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this.
Okay, take a moment. Take a breather.
Can you give me that, please? Thank you. And can you give me that paper towel right there? Thanks so much. Oh my gosh. You should have let the video record. Okay. So in that moment, she said, "Mom, why don't you become a realtor?" And I mean, I'd been in corporate for 16 years before I became a real estate agent. And before that, when I was a manager, I had people come in to the bank, great customers. Obviously, I had a couple of realtors that went in there, and they would tell me that, "Have you thought about real estate?" And I never gave it much attention. I felt like, for a lot of years in my life, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Brian.
Okay. Take a second and just.
I think I got. Okay.
No rush.
I know, like the baby's even kicking right now. He's like, "What is happening?" For a lot of years of my life, I felt like I was always living for people. I was living for my parents. I was living for my daughter. I was living for every other thing but maybe what I wanted to do. And so I never paid it much attention. I said, "No, I am happy." I was completely devoted to my job. And so at the moment when she said that to me, it clicked, right? She said to me, you're basically already doing real estate, Mom. You're selling it in a smaller scale, right? I was doing merchant services for Wells Fargo. It's basically credit card processing for any small or large business. And so she said, you're already doing this. Might as well do it on a bigger scale, right? Like you wouldn't be helping businesses with just a credit card machine. You would be helping them with one of their biggest purchases of their life. And I couldn't believe so much wisdom and so much insight was coming from a 13-year-old, And so I said to her, okay, that actually makes sense. Like, help me do some, like, let's start digging in. What does it mean to become a real estate agent? I had a real estate agent when I bought my house, and she was amazing, right? And so I said, let's do some research. I need you to do some research for me. Kids were at home during 2020, and so she had a lot of time in her hands, and she was able to do that. I said, okay, give me the pros and the cons of becoming a real estate agent. She literally next day, she comes into my office. She said, okay, Mom, I've done research, and I know, what it means to become a real estate agent. I have the good and the bad. Where do you want to start? And I said, why don't you start with the bad? Start with the bad. And so she said, it is a roller coaster ride. It could be a roller coaster ride with emotion. So you have to emotionally be intelligent. Can you do that? And I said, I've been a manager. I've gone through some things, and I think I got that. She said, you potentially won't be getting paid for the first 6 to 8 months. So you need to have a savings for about 6 to 8 months. And I said, okay, well, we definitely will have to make sure that we stay for certain things to happen at the bank in order for me to make sure that I actually save up for that. I didn't have anyone else. I don't have anyone else that I could, depend on at the time. And so I was like, okay, we got to do it. And then the third thing was, oh my gosh, I can't remember what the third thing was. But then for the pros were, you can have the life that you've dreamed of. You could grow this something into that you can create generational wealth, and you can help multiple families and be a blessing to family, right? And so, in that moment, so I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to enroll for Rockwell. That was towards the end of 2021. I'm sorry, 2020. Yeah, 2020. At the beginning of 2021, I immediately enrolled to Rockwell, and I left. I gave my resignation letter February 18th of 2021, and I got licensed May 2026. And my only regret has been that why didn't I start before, right? It's been the biggest blessing in my life. Not only, it's been tremendously hard. Everything that she said about 6 to 8 months of savings, everything she said about the roller coaster ride of the emotions, everything that has been mentioned, immediately when I knew that I was going to start real estate, I immersed myself in anything and everything that had to do with real estate. I wanted to know who were the best in the world, who was doing some big things. I wanted to understand the language, and I wanted to understand all that stuff. And even when I did all that, when you come in and you're actually in the trenches of it and you're actually doing the work, no one could have ever prepared you for it until you're actually in it. And so you're the creator of the story of it. And so it's been great so far. And that is what inspired me to start real estate, was really through my daughter. Oh my gosh. And I cried like 25 times. Oh shit. I think we can create like an entire month from that one. Oh my gosh, Brian.